The opposing minimum radius turn. This video covers the opposing minimum radius turn from the number 5 lead solo perspective. This maneuver is one of the most dangerous that the solo pilots will fly, and while the name makes it sound the same as the MRT that precedes it, the profile is entirely different and requires careful formation flying and precision aerobatic maneuvering. Briefing. The opposing minimum radius turn begins immediately following the clearing turn after the MRT. Both aircraft have egressed behind the crowd at between 1,000 to 1,500 feet HEL and are increasing speed to 380 knots, with number 6 forming in parade position on number 5's left wing. At 3.2 nautical miles from center point, both pilots initiate a right-hand 180-degree turn back towards center point, and both descend to 500 feet HEL. Upon rollout, number 6 moves up to the line abreast formation left of number 5. Number 5 then calls for smoke on and hands lead to 6, who maintains bearing, altitude, and airspeed. At the crowd line, smoke is extinguished and number 5 drops aft and slightly below number 6 to set up the hit. 8 seconds past center point, number 5 calls the hit, and both pilots execute simultaneous opposing 270-degree rolls and pull across each other's flight path, resulting in a dramatic crossing nose to tail. This transitions into a 270-degree level turn away from each other and returning back to center point. Both aircraft cross center point nose to nose with maximum closure and minimum separation. Once angled away from the crowd, both pilots pull to 40 degrees into the vertical and execute 3.5 simultaneous aileron rolls, ending inverted, before clearing on opposite headings away from show center. This maneuver is truly breathtaking, featuring the appearance of 2 near misses and lots of high-performance maneuvering. It is a perfect way to show off your precision flying skills, but it's also one of the most unforgiving maneuvers in the show. So let's get into the details so you can nail it. Walkthrough. Welcome back to the cockpit of the F-18C Hornet. We've just cleared from the minimum radius turn, and we're now setting up for the opposing minimum radius turn. Now, we are going to be about a mile from center point, rolled out on behind the crowd heading, somewhere from 290 to 320 knots, and anywhere from around 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet. The variability of the MRT makes the setup for the opposing MRT a little bit more challenging, but it's something we'll have to practice and something that's worth working on. So, the setup for the opposing MRT is a formation turn behind the crowd to the in front of crowd heading, lined up line abreast with number 6 leading the maneuver. So, in order to get us set up into that position, we need to continue flying away from crowd heading, straight and level, increasing our speed slowly up to about 380 knots with a decent amount of power in. Then it's going to be a quick right-hand bank at 3.2 miles, And we're going to pull 4 Gs around the corner and try to descend to 500 feet so that we roll out on the in front of crowd heading at 500 feet around 380 to 400 knots, at which point we'll fly straight and level until 2 miles where we hand it off to Brother Leb. So, let's take a look at how we did. 320. 330. We're calling speeds for Brother Leb. 340 until he gets formed in. 350. You got 2, Chariot. Chariot. At which point, you don't have to call speeds anymore. Easing a little power. Adding power. Coming right. Comes the pull. Set at 4 Gs. There we go. And now we're looking for center point. Easing the pull. Rolling out. A little drive. Looking good. 380, there it is. Smoke on, left lead. Alright, smoke on, left lead. This means that we've turned our smoke on, and we've handed lead to Brother Leb, who is on our left. This means that he is now leading the maneuver. It is now our job to fly straight and level next to him, line abreast. And we're going to try and be fairly close. I think it's about a 60-foot separation wingtip to wingtip. And the goal is to fly line abreast with him, smoke on, until we get over the crowd. Once we reach the edge of the crowd and the show box where those 2 points meet, we're going to call smoke off. At that point, we're going to ease our power to idle and drop about 50 feet below Brother Leb and come to the left so that we have a tiny bit of overlap of Brother Leb's right wing. At which point, we're going to power back up to match Brother Leb's speed, and once we have matched Brother Leb's speed, we call ready, hit it, and I'll go over what we do when we hit it in a moment. So, we've just handed lead to Brother Leb on the left, which means we need to start looking for our lead. So we look over here, there he is. He's lined up. So now it's our job to stay line abreast with him until we reach crowd line. So he's giving us calls, helping us fly. We want to put the seat of Brother Leb's pants, so right there on the horizon. We want him sitting on the horizon. Try and stay line abreast. There's crowd line. Smoke off. Easing power, dropping down, coming left, adding power, and now we're calling ready, hit it. Now what we do when we hit, we're going to yug to about 2.5 degrees, and then we're going to do a right 270-degree roll to a left knife edge, at which point we're going to pull at 6 Gs behind Brother Leb, ideally 6, but sometimes it has to be more to avoid conflict. And as soon as we cross behind him, as soon as we hit his wake, we call smoke on. This means that the smoke turns on and it looks like the two smokes are emanating from the same point in the sky. So if we've done this correctly, to the crowd, it looks like the smokes are emanating from the same point in the sky, and we start going around the corner. Now, our numbers to go around the corner are 380 knots. We want 380 knots at 4 Gs. Those are our numbers that we have to hit. 380 knots, 4 Gs, descending to 500 to 300 feet. Trying to stay at around 500. That's the best way for Brother Leb to make the hit, is at 500 feet. So, once again, yug to 2.5 degrees, right 270-degree roll to a left knife edge, pull behind Brother Leb at 6 G. When we cross Brother Leb's flight path, call smoke on, at which point we're looking to hit 380 knots. Once we hit 380 knots, look down at the G meter, smash 4G. At that point, try and hold 380 knots, 4G, adjusting your stick and your throttle as necessary to do so. And we'll have a little bit more to do as we're coming around the corner, but that's the profile, so let's get started. So ready, hit it. Smoke on. 380 mark. At this point, we're almost at the 90, and we're going to start looking for Brother Leb because we need to be able to confirm that we can see him. So we look over behind us. Where is he? There he is. He's a bit behind us right now, but we're going to be looking for Brother Leb. As soon as we see him, we call contact. As soon as we call contact, we don't look at him anymore for the rest of the maneuver. So we see him, we know where he is, we know where he is relative to us. So here we go. Contact. He'll call contact, at which point we look back at center point. And we look at center point and we think to ourselves, are we going to hit that? If the answer is yes, then we call center point Leb. If we think we're going to be a little bit inboard, so closer to the crowd, then center point, we call inboard Leb, or a little inboard Leb, a little being a smaller amount. Or we can call outboard if we think that our turn is going to be a little bit too tight. So we can call a little outboard or outboard Leb. So we've called contact, we've looked at center point, and now we're going to give the call. This one looks like it's going to be a good hit, so I'll call center point Leb, and he'll call Leb. At which point, trying to hit those numbers. Now about here, if we kept pulling, we'd actually come way inboard and early. So we're actually going to have to pitch in a whole boot, the full boot, of right rudder to keep the jet on the knife edge. We're trying to make it look like it's a knife edge to knife edge cross. So we're trying to fly straight and level, trying to throw 380 knots with the right rudder to keep the jet on horizon line as we cross center point. When we cross center point, ideally, we will also be merging. If we're not, I tend to call either center point or merge, whichever comes first, and then the following one. So in this case, it was merge, and it's always merge if you're going to merge at center point. And this indicates to Brother Leb that he can start maneuvering a little bit to adjust his heading to make sure that we're going to do the rest of the maneuver in sync. So here we go. Coming around, looking to see when we're going to merge. Merge. And now at this point, we're going to pull to our crowd right away from crowd heading, which is 215, at which point we will roll level and pull to 40 degrees. And we're going to give both of those calls to Brother Leb. So stand by, roll, pull to 40. Now 40 degrees is the high show clear. A low show would be 20 degrees, and a flat show would be 10 degrees. So here we go. Stand by, roll, pull to 40. Now once we reach 40 degrees, we start a set of right hand or away from crowd 3.5 aileron rolls. So it's 1, 2, 3.5, and we end up inverted away from crowd, at which point Brother Leb will call clear, and we will call roll, which means continuing that right hand roll 270 degrees to the right knife edge, at which point Brother Leb will call clear, and we will call roll again. It's important to note that when we are inverted and we call that roll, that is when we turn our smoke off. So here we go. Stand by, roll. 1, and I actually count these in the cockpit. 2, 3.5. Chairs clear. Roll. Brother Leb's clear. Roll. There we go. And now we push out and come to the right, and we give the call, chairs clear, and clearing in front of the crowd for the horizontal rolls. And then we give our distance, 3.2. And that is a walkthrough of the opposing MRT. Alright, let's take a look at an example of the opposing MRT from a recent show we flew at Kobuleti. Once we hit the show box, pay close attention to how I position my aircraft below and behind Brother Leb to establish the correct parallax to set up the initial hit.
355. 360, easing a little power. 365. 370. You'll have to, Chariot. Coming right, adding a little power, comes the pull. Looking for 155. Ease in the pull. And rolling out. Easing some power. A little pull. We're going to be a little left. Look, smoke on left lead.
A little low. Easing a little more power. Power set.
Smoke off. Ready, hit it. Smoke on. 380 mark.
Match.
Flying the numbers.
Little slow.
Contact looking good. Same in at center point.
Flip.
Merge. Stand by, roll. Pull to 40. Stand by, roll. 1, 2, 3, and trace
Clear.
Roll. Trace clear.
Clear.
Roll. And trace clear, and clearing in front of the crowd for the opposing horizontal rolls. 2.8, state 7.8.
3.3, state 8. 3.7.
And that's how the Legacy Blue Solos perform the opposing minimum radius turn. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel where you can find full side-by-side show sequences and debriefs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the flight line.